So our first speaker this morning is Colin Drake, AIA. Colin's a principal and civic studio design leader for JRA Architects. He's a passionate advocate for great design at any price point, leveraging conventional materials in unique and compelling ways. His 20-year career has focused on a broad range of public-facing project types, from schools to courthouses to libraries, where investment in practical sustainability can touch the everyday lives of the public and inspire greater well-being. Let us welcome Colin to the Aspire stage.
Sure. All right. Forward. There we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit about this passion project of mine and a few of my friends that we lured into getting outside and perhaps exploring the surrounding environment in our lives in a little bit different way. I've found that I end up getting mesmerized by that video, and I'll be watching it 50 times, so I apologize in advance if I'm lulling anybody to sleep right off the bat here, but anyway, you can get a sense for what this is going to be about. Here are your learning objectives. I will not read them, but the moral of the story here is we have these opportunities to connect with our communities, the people we serve, in ways that might catch them off guard, might take advantage of uncapitalized upon amenities that they have available to them, and really catch people off guard and hopefully inspire them to connect with their surroundings in a unique way. All right. So in terms of the work that we do, obviously Nathan gave you a little bit of an intro, but the spirit of the work that we've been doing over the past 10 years really gets into all kinds of different ways that we're connecting with people on an everyday basis. And hopefully the work that we do ends up inspiring people, connecting with them, trying new things, getting out, exploring the world around them, and ultimately, hopefully, having a little bit of fun, which in the end, if you come and do join me for the chat, you will definitely have a chance to get a little taste of that. The work that we do practically at JRA Architects does touch on a lot of those same ideals that ended up inspiring the work that you're going to see here today. Things like daylight interiors, where there are intuitive experiences that students and educators can have that make for a more conducive learning environment. Captivating worship spaces, places where people come together and have focus on meaningful things in their everyday lives. Moments of color and excitement and opportunity that happen in places like libraries, where you have a little bit more freedom to spread out and create captivating moments and experiences. And then work in historic preservation to reshape the world that we've known and maybe familiar, but tell a little bit different story and hopefully get people really excited about the environment that they know, but maybe is a little bit tweaked to a more compelling experience. So the impetus of this whole process, this whole project, was a field just like this one. We spent all this time on the internet, and what's really fun is you end up wandering into places you would never expect yourself to be. So for me, I end up finding myself looking at environmental art quite a bit, and this was one that a couple here that I'll end up sharing with you that really ended up inspiring a slightly different reaction from me. This first artist is Andres Amador, who basically spends all of his time creating artwork in very untouched beach settings. His geometric creations are really remarkable and something that's pretty hard to imagine trying to lay out or achieve, but you can see him there with just a rake. And that's how he's pulling this off. It's just a simple set of rules that he sets for himself on each particular design. And while I find some of these geometric ones really compelling, it's actually the more organic creations that he's done that really blow me away, and I just can't get enough of the work that he does. Another one, though, is Simon Beck, who's much more partial to untouched snow. So he's up on mountainsides in the middle of nowhere, creating these crazy geometric compositions using nothing other than snowshoes, an orienteering compass to do his layout, and a simple ski pole so that he can trace the lines as he goes. So they're beautiful and really remarkable, but in the end, they're totally off limits to people. They're on untouched, perfect beaches away from people a lot of times. They're on mountainsides, far, far away from humanity. And they're really meant to be art pieces. They're not something that was really meant for people to interact with. And the architect inside of me, and hopefully all of you, can imagine, this is only as good as the shadows being cast by a perfect sunlit day, or the next incoming tide washes away the work, or obviously blizzard, next snowfall. And so these things are very impermanent, which is okay, but ultimately are very much off limits to the people that hopefully they might be able to connect with. Why we do what we do, obviously we all are here because we have some level of passion for creating architecture or designed environments, and the spirit of trying to create these moments of experience for the people that we serve hopefully compels us every day with this very practical art that obviously stretches all the way back into history and gives us the legacy that we're still building on today. So we're all more familiar with this little spiky buddy from 2020, and that's really the moment that sparked this experience for me and these friends of mine that joined us, that all these bits and pieces of our lives that got changed so drastically in 2020 really came to the fore, and ultimately for somebody like me that's got to stay active, was really challenging to try to find a way to not be within arm's reach of anybody I knew outside of my family, but still potentially connect with them and keep myself busy and scratch that design itch in a way that hopefully was compelling and might even bring people together. So obviously, the reality of adapting, we all had to deal with it over the past 2.5 years, but for us, one of these wild things that just was a happenstance encounter was the middle school field at my children's middle school. This is just in the middle of a suburban neighborhood, nothing special about it. It's never not been mowed in my entire 20 years of living in this neighborhood. And all of a sudden it became a meadow because March of 2020, they just stopped mowing everything. Everybody disappeared, the school closed, the mowers, who knows where they went. But ultimately we had grass that was yay high, something like that. And it was unbelievable to see it blowing in the wind and just see this all of a sudden very unexpected natural environment just spring out of nowhere. So dreamed up, like many of you probably experienced in 2020, spending time on each other's driveways, sitting in circles of lawn chairs. One Friday night, sitting around, maybe I had a drink or two, and talking to my neighbor, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we just got up on Saturday morning, I just work out on Saturdays, I don't really want to do that, but what if we just grabbed our mowers and we went over to that middle school and we mowed a maze in that thing, because then we'd have something for us to do, something for our kids to do, and very possibly something for all of our friends to actually have a reason to get together. So this is his first creation. You'll see the lines are not very straight. This poor guy, it took him about 20 minutes to get through it. He was a very good sport. I really appreciated his perseverance. His son was no help to him, by the way. And what's really fun about this is we had 2 acres to just spread out. So we were just making it up as we went along with lots of open space. And this was kind of how it was every day for the better part of 3.5 weeks. And just every time you drive past, there'd be 3 or 4 people. We basically blasted it out to everybody that we knew. And then, of course, we didn't happen to ask for permission on that first one. I mean, it probably should have, but what was great, I think it was great, was that somebody, a concerned citizen, had reached out to the principal that day when he saw us mowing, and by that afternoon, he was so pumped about what we had done that he blasted it out to the entire school. And then that next week, the superintendent had blasted it out to the entire Jefferson County Public Schools district. So we had people from all over the city coming to experience this. Throughout the rest of the presentation, I probably won't point it out from here on, but I'm going to keep a price tag here down in the bottom corner just to give you context, because part of the interesting thing about this was ultimately the barrier for entry was really, really low, which hopefully is something you can take with you, even if it has nothing to do with mazes, but just keeping in mind how we solve problems that maybe there's a way to sort of roll this forward to some other inspiration. So what we learned is we were standing there mowing for 4 hours, waiting for our lawnmowers to stop overheating, was that this was a great reason for getting out and getting exercise. We were walking for 4 straight hours. It was really lovely, peaceful, it was a beautiful day. We had a great time. The fact that for the people that were doing this, especially for the kids, this was a super intuitive way, just experience to get out and do some problem solving. And to have fun without having to have as much of a, constricting boundary around you. I mean, again, this was a 2-acre field, but you could see even a 2 or 3-year-old out there in the field, so a parent could sit on the side and not be worried about their kid getting away or getting in trouble. The fact that this was age neutral, and of course the parenthetical bit here, the parents seemed to be a lot more, had a lot more trouble with these things than the kids did. The kids just were like, they got in there, they jumped in, they went. It was really fun to see. To that point that I made a minute ago, the fact that there were kids that were 2 or 3 years old, which honestly kind of surprised me with something that was this big, and their parents were hanging back, and they just let them wander. Oftentimes, dogs jump in the lines, totally cheating, but the little kids were just so much fun to watch, and pictures all over the place with kids like, yeah, did it, at the end. So it was just really fun to see people of every age engage with this thing. Whoops. And this is probably the part that gave us some confidence that we weren't going to have to worry about the powers that be coming down on us too badly, is there was no lasting footprint to this. I mean, all we were doing was mowing the grass. And so in the end, this thing got mowed 3.5 weeks later, and you wouldn't have even known that we had done it. So, in addition to all those ideas, there were a lot of things that, me being who I am, it's like, all right, what's next? This was too much fun not to do this again. So could I build on the relationships that JRA architects and I've built with local parks, local schools, local other amenities, libraries, not necessarily government locations, but park district? Are there those partnerships that could actually lead to more invention like this? Didn't have to necessarily be in a field. Obviously, this happened to be the place where we started, but could we actually work in a no-mow area on plenty of properties? I live in a very hilly neighborhood. There are plenty of places where people just don't want to drag their mowers, so maybe that was an opportunity for us. The possibility to scale to every circumstance, and this is my plug to come to the second half of the talk today, is you'll get to experience some of that scale. Obviously, we don't have 2 acres inside of this venue, but you can have these kinds of experiences at so many different scales and really make them compelling even at a smaller scale. And again, back to that $6, that was 3 gallons of gas. Back when gas was less than $4. And other than our exercise, the time that we spent on it, it was almost virtually free, and that was so much fun. So could we lean into that even more? Could we do as much as possible for as little as possible and just make that part of the challenge? And in the end, hopefully the takeaway for everybody here today is this is about engagement. This is not, it's about creativity. It's about scratching that itch of, hey, your everyday work may not be giving you the kind of satisfaction you need. Are there things that you could be doing in your spare time as a hobby or as a passion project to connect with people in a way that really still is part of what you do every day? So these are infographics just to tell you the kind of range of experiences, and we obviously started kind of where that graphic is, where kind of a meadow, low-lying grass kind of area. This next project was basically immediately afterward. We did get permission. This was great. We got permission. This is my kids' high school, just up the street. They have 47 acres, like most suburban high schools, lots of land. But what was interesting, the area that was not buildings, fields, pavement, was over half the property. And of that, over a quarter of that empty lot property was no mow area, just because of all the topography that they had and just their interest in not spending a lot of money on maintenance. So you can see this is right field here in the baseball stadium, and then the picture in the upper right is actually where we did this next one that you'll see. To, again, kind of ramp up the pressure on ourselves. Could we actually make this something graphic, something that was designed ahead of time? In this case, we ended up leaning into the logo of the high school. It's a very charismatic A. If you're ever in Louisville, you'll see these stickers all over cars. Could we just leverage normal conventional tools like Google Maps and all the different CAD programs we had available to us? Because Google is really great and keeps that scale at every size. And then just the reality of, hey, could we just make it a 5-foot grid? That's 2 normal human steps. All of a sudden, this isn't something that I need to tape measure out there to get every little corner, but can just be part of walking around. You don't see all the eraser marks, but this first one took me a minute. And it ultimately wasn't quite exactly this, but it's pretty close, and really the spirit of this was, can we take the big A, make it really obvious, and then make everything else really complement it. So it's super curvy, and there are some other reasons for that, but ultimately, to create this, all it took was some string and a line, stepped off the path, and then all of a sudden, like you saw in the opening, there this thing is. So you can see the big A is kind of right in the middle. So there's the middle of the big A right there. I think it comes around, you can see it in a little more clarity, but this was about 2 acres for this first maze, and in the end, we ended up mowing another 3 mazes on this property. You can see up on right field there, ended up being another one that stretched along. Whoops. Here we go. So you can see the big A there on the left, and the one on the right isn't the prettiest in the world, but it was really tough. So there were some very miserable kids who started and ended at the same place on the far end of the field. So you would go down, there were a bunch of loops, so you get confused, and you come back right the way you started, and it was hilarious. I mean, it was hilarious for me, I don't know about them. And then you can see right field here. Again, less than $20, and that's mainly because we ended up remowing these, I want to say 3 or 4 times each. So this lasted basically the entire summer. This was about 2.5 months that these were in commission, and honestly, people kept using them long after we stopped mowing them. Could we amp this up even further? Could we go even more extreme in terms of the environment and try to make something of a total wilderness? So this is just outside downtown Louisville. This is a floodplain area that's right by the river. It's, I don't know, 20, 30 acres of wooded land. I think it was mowed most recently about 3 years ago. And so it was super, super rough. And you can see the paths are there. It's very, very hard to see from above. There were just trees. It was great because in the middle of the summer, you didn't really want to be out in the middle of the field during the day. So to have all this shade was amazing. But what we didn't expect was for there to be an entire BMX obstacle course that we had to contend with back there. And obviously with maze, if you cross another path, all of a sudden things get really confusing. So it was another challenge to see, could we actually find our way and map this sucker out, because it's hard to design something you don't know what the boundaries are. So with a handy-dandy running app, all of a sudden we were able to just walk the perimeter of that site. Again, get it in tracing paper, kind of get the big idea going, where we might do a ring around the trees, and off we went. So give you a sense, now stuff's over your head, so we opted to widen the path so that they were comfortable for 2 people to stand side by side and walk through, so parents and kids would feel comfortable. And really, in the end, this was super fun, mainly because it was shady, so even 10, 11, noon, in the middle of summer, you could go and really get into this. What was fun along the way is we were able to strip back a bunch of invasive vines that were choking off a lot of the baby trees around the site. And ultimately, you go there today, you wouldn't even know anything happened. Nature kind of found its way to just reclaim this site after the few weeks that we had done it, and nobody's the wiser. But very fun, very challenging for the people that did it, because obviously now, kind of like a corn maze, you're stuck without being able to see where you're headed. Because you go the other direction and now just get back into a very well-maintained field. This is Briarwood Elementary School in Bowling Green, Kentucky. They had their like behavioral specialist in the district reached out to me through a contact of the Department of Education and asked us to come and do this maze there, which is about a half acre, much smaller property, but they really were looking for reasons to get out, to do mindfulness activities. Again, this was the height of wearing masks in school, and these elementary kids were just looking for a way out. But the fact that this is a mown lawn, they needed this thing to operate as a lawn all the time. So again, pushing this to the other extreme. And then, does it even have to have landscape involved in it at all? And I would say probably not. Is there the chance that something like, let's say, my driveway would be a great venue for something that was interactive like this? Again, 400 square feet, and you could still create something that took several minutes to get through. Nice thing is, they only actually participated for a few hours, and then 2 years since, it's been just a really lovely decoration on my driveway. And then, could we take this inside? Is there the opportunity that something like this, and this is again, a spoiler for anybody that's coming later, could we take advantage of interior spaces using, again, conventional things like video projectors and something like painter's tape to create a compelling experience that might be perfect for Matchbox cars in this case, or if you do decide to join us, for you on foot or by hand. Outside, that was inside that atrium right there. This was kind of the continued evolution. Obviously, you remember that first maze was pretty gnarly. You know, we're getting to a better place in terms of how we created and you know, the kind of graphic designed feature that I'm proud to put in a portfolio now, and we actually use to market to our clients. The fun thing here at Ball State was they have all these student groups, so AIS, and they're planning, landscape architecture, education, and part of this mission was to actually compel them to go out to local schools who, Muncie actually, their local schools are run by Ball State, and so there's this unique partnership there where they could actually take this and literally take it to the schools and take it much further than we could have by ourselves. So, planting enough seeds. This is in your future if you decide to join us in a few minutes. Thank you so much for having me, and have a great day. Thank you.